Oh yeah, so this morning we should not take much time, but what I really wanted was, having finished reading together the Compendium of Precepts, I felt it's important that I'm sure many of you already have that idea, but for those who do not have that idea, I think it's important to get a clear picture of how to practice, how to proceed from what state to what state. Of course, that is all the Lamrim teachings are about. But as I mentioned yesterday, in the Tsongkhapa's Great Stages of the Path, in the end of that text, he has written this summary of the whole path, which, as I told you, that once His Holiness asked me to translate when I was working with him. So I translated that, and so I have given here both the Tibetan and the English version. So those of you who want to know it more clearly, especially the Tibetans, you can read the Tibetan, and it will give an idea how to do the practice stage by stage. And then the English version is also here. So I'll just go through quickly. That's all I wanted to do. So you can do this reflection of or meditation on the whole stages of the path, either by reading a text is like this, because sometimes when you read a big volume, then it's difficult for you to digest, to comprehend it in a short way, to summarize it. So it's useful to have such kind of summary, or you can use the other text like Yöndin Chijurma, Foundation of All Qualities by Tsongkhapa, which I plan to give it next time when I give the teaching in February. That's only in Tibetan, unfortunately. So a brief summary of the whole path. So we'll read together, just to get a feel of it. A brief summary of the whole path. First, develop a thorough understanding of the way to rely on a spiritual teacher, because that is the root of the path. See, even in ordinary life, if you want to become a carpenter, you need to rely on a teacher. So similarly, whatever you want to learn, you need to first of all get a good teacher. Now here in this case of spiritual practice, where we are talking about traveling into an unknown world, that is in the future life, or at least something that has to do with the mental realm, which is again non-physical. So it is important to rely on somebody who has, number one, knowledge, and number two, more importantly, who has experience. So that is becoming rarer and rarer, unfortunately. So it's important to find a reliable teacher, okay, qualified teacher. So this is just pointing towards the importance of the teacher. Then if you want to know more, read various Lamrim texts, and those Lamrim texts will explain what kind of qualities a teacher of Vinaya should have, a teacher of Tantra should have, a teacher of Sutra should have, and so on. But at least you should find a teacher which has more compassion, which has more knowledge than you, otherwise he cannot teach you, and who is ready to help you, who does not get easily tired when helping people. So find such a teacher. That's the root foundation of the path. It's very important, because if you get the wrong teacher or wrong friend, just like getting wrong friend, if you get a wrong friend, you can go into the wrong way. Similarly, you get a wrong teacher also, you can get into trouble. And especially in today's world, people, when they come from a different cultural background, many of the people who come from different cultural background, like Westerners, many of them probably they already have their own personal problems and difficulties, and they come to seek some solution for those problems, to find better happiness. So again, if you get into the hand of a wrong person, you can imagine, so you get, big problem. So therefore it's important to, first of all, use your common sense, whether you have a lot of Buddhist knowledge or not, but at least use your common sense. Don't give yourself up to anybody like that. Be nice, be kind, maintain friendship, but give a little bit of distance and then judge. That's important. Then of course when you read more of these Buddhist teachings, what kind of qualities a teacher should have, then of course you will get more idea, more knowledge. So the relation between the teacher and the student is extremely important, not only in the sutric practice, but it is even more important in the tantric practice. So therefore, many of the teachers, they say, when it comes to finding a teacher, you should not be like a hungry dog. You know, the hungry dog who's looking for food, and suddenly you get a piece of meat and then you jump into it. You see, not like that. You should take some time. So in the beginning, if you don't want to have that as your main teacher or root teacher, something like that, you can still learn from that person. You see, just as we can learn from people in universities and colleges. So learn, and that's it. So maintain healthy relationship. So there's the root. An uncontrived, that means genuine desire to extract the essence of this life as a free and fortunate human being will give you the inner impetus to do spiritual practice. We have discussed this already. It's important. The second thing you need to do is you need to appreciate the fact that you have today obtained this extremely precious human life. And as I have explained already, precious human life is primarily in the sense of you're obtaining this extremely wonderful human intelligence by which you are able to discriminate between what is right and what is wrong. So having found such a wonderful human life with such sophisticated human intelligence, if you use this potential in the wrong way, there's a big wastage. So that is what he's saying. So understand your capacity as a human being in many ways. So an uncontrived, genuine desire to get the meaning out of this life. This life is a life where there is a freedom and where there is needed facilities. As a free and fortunate human being will give you the inner, if you understand that, then that will give you the encouragement, the inner impetus to do spiritual practice. If you wish to develop it, meditate on the various aspects of freedom and good fortune. So that is very important. So, I will explain this later on also, but what is important is, having understood this whole outline, what you need to do is spend a lot of time on each of this topic. Yes, it will take a lot of time. You need to reflect yourself, read the text, then reflect and meditate. Why human life is important? What are the important facilities? You need to reflect repeatedly so that you are able to get genuine conviction. So if you wish to develop it, meditate on the various aspects of freedom and good fortune, facilities that you have. However, one thing that you need to understand is, one that obstructs us using or taking the essence out of this human life is our obsession to this life and obsession to the future life. So that's what he's saying next. If you are unable to curtail your mental obsession with the things of this life, you will be unable to generate an intense aspiration for the good of your next life. So you will just think about only this life. That's what majority of the people do. They think that this life is the only life. You see? So you will not prepare for the future life. Therefore, try to meditate on impermanence. This life is important. It's precious human life. You need to take care of it. But at the same time, you need to understand the fact that this life is impermanent, and whatever you have is short-lived, that the body you have now is short-lived, and that you will wander in miserable states of existence after death if you don't accumulate positive qualities. And when you reflect in this way, then you will develop a genuine sense of fear that will encourage you to cultivate wholehearted faith in the qualities of the three refuges: the Buddha, the Dharma, doctrine, and the spiritual community. You see? You will then develop a genuine sense of fear. That's why renunciation is taught right in the beginning, which talks about the limitations and sufferings of samsara. If you are somebody who spends enough time reflecting on it, you will really then develop some kind of discussion with this short-lived life and the samsara. And as a result, you will be able to develop some fear. How can I protect myself from the accumulation of these afflictive emotions and the possible consequences that I might experience? When you get that kind of sense of genuine concern and fear, then you will find out who can protect me, who can guide me, who can help me. So it is in this way then you take refuge to the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. Okay? It's very important. Then observe the common vows. It's not enough that you take refuge in Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. Having taken refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, you are basically saying that I will set in patterns of life. I will engage in certain spiritual practices. So having taken refuge to Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, there are certain commitments, certain vows that must observe. So then observe the common vows of taking refuge and train in their precepts. By whatever means you can, cultivate faith and trust in the law of causality, the basis of virtuous practices. If you don't trust the infallibility or certainty of law of causalities, then you will start thinking, okay, whatever I want to do, I will do. There will be no karmic consequences, So that's how many people continue to engage in wrong actions, you see. But then the fruit of those wrong actions, not only they will have to live in the future lives, but in this life also, you will see many people engaging in criminal activities, then they end up in the prison and so on. They get bad reputation, so many things you can see that also. So there's nothing but the law of nature. So again here you need to really think very seriously how this law of karma functions. Like for example, in the morning, if you develop very negative motivation, then will that negative motivation that you developed in the morning will give you some kind of peace and happiness in the day? No, it will give you unhappiness, suffering. That's law of karma, see. So with such kind of example, you should explore the depth of the function of law of karma. Having made your faith firm, make efforts to embark on the practice of the 10, at least to start with. Make effort to embark on the practice of the 10 wholesome deeds, cultivate the 10 positive deeds, and refrain from the 10 unwholesome deeds. We have discussed this also. And engage in the faith of the 4 powers. We have read that also. Okay? When you have been successful in thus consolidating the features of the practice of initial scope, teachings related to the person with a small mental intelligence, contemplate the specific and general force of the cycle of existence. So the person with initial scope or small intelligence, they adopt various ways and means how to enjoy the pleasures of the samsara. Okay? But then gradually, if you want to do the practice that is suitable to a person with mediocre intelligence, then you should be able to see the force of the cycle of existence and develop a wish to come out of that cycle of existence and actualize nirvana. So try to turn your mind away from the cycle of existence as much as you can. Then identify the nature of the disturbing emotions and actions which are responsible for projecting you into the samsara, which are the causes giving rise to the cycle of birth and death, and cultivate a genuine aspiration to eliminate them. Because we all want reliable, long-lasting happiness. That's why we do not want to continue to stay in the samsara. You see? Place your faith in the 3 paths of training, that is morality, concentration, wisdom, that can liberate you from the cycle of existence. Make particular effort in whatever practices of individual liberation, that means liberation or nirvana, you have vowed to observe. When you have consolidated the practices of both the initial and the middling scope, remember that like you, all mother sentient beings have fallen into the ocean of cycle of existence. So therefore it is wrong just to think about oneself and forget the rest of the mother sentient beings. So therefore next is training in bodhicitta, which was our main focus when we were reading this Compendium of Precepts by Shantideva. So train in the awakening mind, that is bodhicitta, which is rooted in the love and compassion. If you want to develop bodhicitta, first you must develop compassion, and before that you must develop love. So either you can develop this bodhicitta through what is known as the practice of exchanging oneself for others, or through the 7 cause effect practice. So in the case of the development of bodhicitta through the 7 cause-effect practices, what you develop is first to recognize all sentient beings as your mother, and then remember their kindness, then develop a wish to repay their kindness, then develop loving kindness, then develop compassion, then develop a very special sense of responsibility, meaning that I will myself do the job of liberating all these sentient beings. And that these 6 causes leads to the achievement of the fruit bodhicitta. So that's one way of developing bodhicitta. The another way which Shantideva normally adopts is the exchange of oneself for others. Okay? How all the miseries and sufferings are rooted in this self-grasping, self-cherishing attitude, and how all the positive experiences and qualities are dependent upon the mind that cherishes the well-being of all sentient beings. Okay? So through that way, you take more care about others and less about yourself. Train in the awakening mind which is rooted in the love and compassion, and try to enhance it as much as possible. Without the bodhicitta or awakening mind, practice of the 6 perfections, the 2 stages of the tantra, and so forth will be like putting up the roof without first laying the foundations. See? So in order to do any of these higher spiritual constructions, you need to first of all lay the foundations. When you have gained some experience of awakening mind, validate it in a formal ceremony. So that means first you cultivate aspirational bodhicitta, thinking how nice if I'm able to achieve Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings, which is a wonderful commitment, but that itself is not enough. You need to do the job. So therefore you take the bodhisattva vow and then actually engage in the practice of the 6 perfections. Okay? That is called engaging bodhicitta. So that's what is being explained here. Validate it in a formal ceremony. That means you can receive bodhisattva vow. You can receive that either from a qualified teacher or even from an image, holy image. You can develop that bodhisattva mind or take the vow from in front of a holy image also. Okay? Make an effort to practice the precepts, that is the practice of the 6 or 10 perfections and so on, and try to reinforce your altruistic aspiration as much as you can. So here every morning if you recite certain verses, may the bodhicitta which I have not cultivated be cultivated, may the bodhicitta which I have cultivated be further strengthened, those kind of verses. Or as long as sentient beings remain, as long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, may I remain to dispel their suffering, things like that. Okay? Listen to explanations of the extensive deeds of a bodhisattva, and when you have understood what they entail, cultivate the intense aspiration to train in them. Having cultivated such an intention, receive the vow to engage the bodhisattva's deeds. Train in the 4 ways of gathering others in order to ripen their minds. The 4 ways of gathering or 4 ways of attracting students or followers to Dharma. That means, first of all, you should help them practically by giving something. Number 1. Number 2, then speak pleasantly, which basically means giving teaching, show them the right path, right way. And then ask them to live their life in such a way. Okay? And then thirdly, fourthly, you should yourself live in accordance with what you taught. Otherwise, they might rebel by saying that, okay, the teacher is saying things like that, but he is not doing. So why should I practice? So in one of the mind training texts, it gives an example by saying that if somebody says, there is gold, there is lots of gold available on the Doladar mountain. If I break this news telling you that there is a lot of gold available in the Doladar mountain and anybody can go and get those golds. If I say this, while having said this, if you ask me, Gila, you are going, if I said, no, I'm not going, then people will not go, thinking that, oh, he may be just talking, there's no actually gold available. If I say gold is available, I am going there, will you come? All of you will come probably, see. So something like that. So train in the 4 ways of gathering others, you see. First help them, practically help them. Then give them teaching, in order to ripen their minds, and the 6 perfections for ripening your own mind. Make special effort to avoid major infractions of the vow, even at the cost of your life. Having made a commitment, try your best not to violate them, not to break them. Try not to spoil your practice with faulty actions, such as the small and middling downfalls. Within the downfalls, there are major, small, middling downfalls. So, not only you should not break the major infractions, but even be careful about the small and middling downfalls. And if you somehow become contaminated, try to set things right. So the most important thing is not to break those vows. Like if you break your leg, the best thing is don't break your leg. Make sure that your leg is not broken. If you say, okay, it's okay, if I break, I can redo it. Yes, you can redo it, but then it is now already different, you see. The leg will then not be so strong because it's already broken and you have redone it, you have repaired it, you see. So that will not be very strong. So it is important not to let your leg break, first of all. So similarly, it's important not to break the downfalls. But at least when you have committed certain downfalls, try to set it right by confessing. And then since you should train particularly in the last 2 perfections, concentration, wisdom, make yourself well versed in the ways of sustaining concentration and actualize meditative stabilization. Try as hard as you can to cultivate a genuine view of the 2 selflessness, the selflessness of persons and the selflessness of phenomena, free from the 2 extremes of permanence and nihilism. So that is basically talking about shunyata or emptiness. So whether it is in your own case or in the case of all sentient beings, none of the phenomena, existing phenomena, has an iota of inherent or intrinsic existence. Okay, there is no intrinsic or independent existence at all. That's the truth, that's the reality. But unfortunately, we do not know that. We perceive things, especially oneself, as having independent, inherent existence. That grasping then becomes the main cause of development of all other afflictive emotions. Because when you develop this grasping of the self and phenomena, then you fall into one of the extremes, you see. Because if you understand the lack of inherent existence of all things, then you free yourself from the two extremes. Meaning that when you say things do not exist inherently, you are not saying they do not exist at all. You are simply saying they exist, but do not exist inherently. So when you say they exist, that helps you not to fall into extreme of nihilism. When you say they do not exist independently, inherently, that helps you not to fall into the extreme of eternalism. Okay? So that's how this understanding helps you avoid the 2 extremes. Having found that view, learn how to sustain and maintain it correctly. Such concentration and wisdom are known as calmly abiding mind and special insight. They are not different from the last 2 perfections. Therefore, once you have received the Bodhisattva vow, these are part of the practice of its precepts. The more you meditate on the lower stages of these practices, the more you will aspire to attain the higher stages, provided if you are doing it right. If you develop genuine understanding, conviction with the lower stages, that will inspire you, give you more encouragement to go to the higher stages of the path. The more you study, the more you reflect, the more your interest is waning. That shows something is wrong. That shows something is wrong. So it's important that you are able to sustain that inspiration, that happiness, that joy in continuously moving from the lower stages of the path to the upper stages of the path. So just like the construction of the building, if the foundation is very stable, then you will really enjoy constructing more and more stories. So something like that. So therefore, do not try to overreach things. Of course, when we enter into the tantric practice, then we hear expressions like saying tantric path is very quick and things like that. But with that temptation, it's not enough that tantric path is quick. The one who wants to travel on that quick path also has to have certain preparations. It's not enough that the Mahayana teaching is Mahayana or great vehicle, but the one who engages into such Mahayana practice should also have that Mahayana mind, great mind. So repeatedly, many of the texts, like Great Stages of the Path, they say it's not enough that the teaching is Mahayana, the person should be Mahayana. Okay? So we must first of all fulfill all these basic requirements. And that's why Tsongkhapa, in one of his compositions, he calls the text by the title, Three Aspects of the Path, three principal aspects of the path, which are renunciation, bodhicitta, and understanding of shunyata. So this basic understanding, a really correct understanding of these basic teachings are very, very important, whether you do Sutik Tantric practice or Tantric practice. Yesterday or this morning, yesterday evening, night, I was watching a teaching by His Holiness, where His Holiness was saying, where His Holiness was explaining about how to become a Buddhist of the 21st century. Where he was saying that a Buddhist of the 21st century means somebody who really has a thorough knowledge of the Buddhist teaching. One who has a thorough knowledge of the Buddhist teaching does not mean that he is able to cite a lot of quotations and able to read Buddhist texts and things like that, but he should be someone who is able to defend the Buddhist teaching through logic and reason, explain the Buddhist teaching through logic and reason. And he cited a quotation by Tsongkhapa in one of the Tantric teaching, where he says, where Tsongkhapa was saying that you should be able to develop such a correct understanding that that understanding cannot be disturbed by any wrong ideas that may come from any sources. So you should rely more on your understanding, logic, and reason, not on quotations. So use your common sense, figure out, find the truth, so that you cannot be distracted by wrong understandings and explanations. And then he said, in addition to that, of course, if you are well versed with some of the scientific explanations, then basically you are a Buddhist of the 21st century. And if the more, he's saying, and if the more you listen to explanations of the higher paths, your aspiration to practice the lower paths becomes stronger, your practice is hitting its target, as I already explained. If you attempt to put all your energy solely into developing mental stability or into mere understanding of the view without following any of the preceding practices, it will be very difficult for you to reach your target. As we already read in the beginning of the text, it is like trying to put the roof without the foundation. Therefore, it is important to acquire a thorough understanding of the complete body of the path. Also, when you meditate on these stages of the path, remove conceptual thoughts and maintain a balanced mind. For example, if you find your respect for the spiritual teacher who guides you on the path declining, because if you don't have the proper understanding, it will decline. Now, for example, let us say if you are looking for a teacher, qualified teacher, and then you take that person as your teacher. Then on some occasions you see some shortcomings and faults of that person. Then immediately you think, oh, he's not perfect, I better distance from him. You lose your faith, and even though that person has not deceived you or done anything, intentionally done anything wrong, but still, because you saw some faults and mistakes, you might do things like that. So that also is, I think, a little bit wrong. Because His Holiness, I remember His Holiness when I was giving the commentary on the Lama Chopa a long time back. He was saying that it's difficult for you to get a perfect teacher who's like a Buddha, completely free from any kind of faults. That's why I explained that at least that teacher has three things. Compassion. If he has compassion, he will not cheat you, deceive you. And of course more knowledge, otherwise he cannot teach. And then ready to help you, work for you, able to undergo some hardships for the benefit of the students. So those basic things must be there. Apart from that, it's difficult to get a teacher that is completely perfect. Why? Because your own situation is such that you will not be able to relate to such a teacher like a Buddha. And His Holiness, I remember very clearly, gave the example by saying that if you want to attract a cat, the only thing you can do is say meow, you see. Because there's the language the cat understands, you see. So similarly, even in the case of a great teacher or great Lama, he comes in the form of an ordinary human being. Ordinary human being means some kind of limitation, some kind of faults, shortcomings, you see. And that also, I'm not saying that all the teachers there, although you see some faults, they are all enlightened. Don't misunderstand that also. That is also not true. Majority, I would say, have real faults, to be honest. So that is important. So if you find, for example, if you find your respect for the spiritual teacher who guides you on the path declining, you risk severing the root of all excellent qualities. Therefore, make an effort to rely on the teacher correctly. That also does not mean that you do whatever the teacher says. You see? Like, for example, I'll just give you a very simple common sense thing. If you have been declaring, saying that, oh, he's a wonderful teacher, he's my root teacher, we are fond of saying things like that. So if that person one day says, okay, you jump from the rooftop and commit suicide, how many of us will do that? Will not do. Because we know that is wrong. You see? We can use our common sense like that. So similarly, if the teacher says something which is not in harmony with the main teaching, then okay, of course you have every right to not accept it, not to follow it. But this does not mean to say that you start also losing respect to that person and forgetting all the kindness that the teacher has given, you see. So understand the good things as good, bad things as bad, but still that person is your teacher. So that way, you see. Just like, almost like our relation with our family members. Your family members have a lot of good things, a lot of bad things. They create a lot of troubles also. They also help you a lot. But still you are able to maintain that relationship because there is a basic thing, love towards each other, which keeps the bond, you see. So something like that should be there. And His Holiness is a wonderful example. He has done that. If you find your obsessive involvement with the things of this life increasing, then meditate primarily on impermanence and the faults of miserable states of existence. Obsessive involvement. If the problem, that's why I'm fond of using this word obsession, If you get completely obsessed with something, you get stuck there. You become immobilized. And what you want is not getting stuck somewhere. You want freedom. Freedom means not to get stuck somewhere. So how would you get that freedom? You would get that freedom if you have a minimum of requirements, if you have contentment. Okay? If you chase every available object and try to obtain it. How can you have freedom, you see? So when you are developing such obsession, then you should see the impermanence of that object, see the ugly side of that object, the problems that might come from there, you see. Think about impermanence and the faults of the miserable states of existence. If you feel that you are violating prohibitions of practice, you have vowed to observe, regard that as a sign of your lack of conviction in the law of causality. So you need to strengthen your conviction in the law of causality by developing more understanding about how the law of causality functions. Meditate chiefly on the principle of cause and effect. That's the solution. If you find your disdain for the whole cycle of existence weakening, as I always say, that for us, although we say, oh, samsara is full of trouble, full of problem, but deep down in our heart, we all are thinking that samsara has, at least so far, samsara has been quite good, pleasant. So that's in the depth of our mind, we have that clinging to the samsara. Therefore, we are scared of death. Scared of death means you want to continue to live. Live where? In the samsara. See? So for saying, we say samsara is full of suffering, but that's why Aryadeva in his 400 verses, he says that if someone does not have genuine veneration and respect to nirvana, that person will never develop sadness or discussion with the samsara. And he gives the example by saying, if you are enjoying your particular home right now, you will never think about moving from that home to some another country, another place. But as and when you see a lot of trouble, in fact, intolerable problem, difficulty in the place or home where you are living right now, then you will start thinking about moving either to America or Canada or whatever. So similarly, right now, we are not at all planning to move towards nirvana. Because as I said, we are thinking deep down, so far samsara is quite good. So we count the successes of the samsaric nature. And if you're able to get some of these successes in the samsara, you think it's good. I'm happy. You see, that's the problem. So he's saying that if you find your disdain for the whole cycle of existence weakening, and your aspiration for liberation is no more than words, think over the faults of cycle of birth and death. Not for 1 day, not for 2 days. Continuously we need to meditate. If you see that your mind is no longer really willing to work for the sake of sentient beings, the route of the great vehicle has been severed. Therefore, repeatedly familiarize yourself with the causes of the awakening mind. Once you have received the bodhisattva vow and you are engaged in the bodhisattva way of life, if you are still bound by the apprehension of signs of intrinsic existence, meaning apprehension of signs here means if you are still developing this perception of seeing things as having independent existence, if you see the signs of independent existence, and if you are apprehending things as having independent existence, then you should use your wisdom to destroy all the objects on which the mind apprehending signs. On which the mind apprehending sign focuses. Train your mind in emptiness, which is like space and an illusion. If you find that the mind does not remain focused on the virtuous object, it's very difficult to have our mind remain focused on the virtuous object, but falls prey to distraction. As previous lamas have taught, consolidate your practice with the stability of single-pointed concentration. Once you have an understanding of the whole path, right from relying on a spiritual teacher, if you are able to develop that general understanding of the whole outline of the path, then even those that has not been explained can be understood implicitly. In short, it is important to make your mind familiarize with the whole range of virtuous practices and not let it become partial to only one aspect. That's very, very important. That's very important. Because the negative emotions that attack us, that confront us, are not one. They are a whole battalion. There is a whole battalion of army of negative emotions coming in the form of attachment, coming in the form of anger, coming in the form of jealousy. So many negative emotions coming this way, that way, you know. So to deal with all these countless negative emotions, you also need the whole system of a path, not a partial practice. There is no patchwork solution. So what he is saying is, it is not good to think that you just pick up one Buddhist teaching and then think that this will solve all your problems. You see, that will not solve the problem, because first of all you have to have a holistic picture. That's why we are talking about lack of inherent existence of all phenomena. That is the holistic picture. You see? So it's important to get a complete picture of the whole thing. The process of training in the Vajrayana in particular. Having trained the mind in the paths common to both Sutra and Tantra, you should certainly enter the path of cigarette mantra. Cigarette mantra. The tantric practice is called cigarette because those who are not ready to do such a practice, it may not be fruitful. It may be risky. Cigarette mantra. Mantra means man is mind, tra means to protect, protecting the mind. So where one of the most important practice to see everything in a pure form. If you are able to appreciate, that's what I have been briefly explaining in the beginning, if you are able to see everything in a positive light, if you are able to appreciate the good qualities of others, good things in the phenomena, then there will be much, much less chance of developing negative emotions. Most of the negative emotions arise because we tend to highlight only the bad part. You see? So what we do in the tantric practice is see everything in a pure form. You enter into mandala, when you do the tantric visualization, you imagine yourself being transformed into a deity which is pure. The mandala in which you are meditating is a pure mandala. So if everything is perfect, why should you get angry? Why should you develop attachment? So that's the idea, mantra. So with this kind of thinking, you will be protected, your mind will be protected, mantra, which is extremely rare compared to other teachings, and is a swift means to complete the two collections. If you do so, then as is taught in the Lamb of the Path by Atisha, first please the spiritual teacher by treating him or her with respect and practicing what you are taught. Because in tantric practice there are very special practices related to the use of one's physical and mental energies. So there you need the guidance of a qualified teacher. So therefore, teacher is even more important. In the practice of the Tantra, the practice of cultivating a relationship with the spiritual teacher is even more profound than was taught earlier in the Sutra section. Moreover, it is only appropriate to cultivate such a relationship with someone who possesses at least the minimum qualifications. And then having found such a teacher, at least having minimum qualifications, first you should receive initiation, which is the entrance to the tantric practice, gateway to the tantric practice. So initiation is not a formality, but it basically means the Lama gives you actually the word empowerment is even more appropriate. Because what does the Lama do is that he gives you the power to do the practice. He says, okay, now you do the practice. You are somebody who has done all the basic practices, Now it's okay for you to do the practice. So that's the meaning of initiation or empowerment. The Sanskrit word is called abhishek. How does it make a difference? In one of the tantric texts, it gives an example by saying that somebody giving the power makes a huge difference. Like, for example, if somebody is to become prime minister tomorrow, but he's not empowered as a prime minister right now, today. So today he doesn't have much power. But tomorrow when public gives him the power, when he's got elected, and we give him the title prime minister, he's very powerful. But in terms of his own personal qualification, there cannot be a big change in one night, you see. The knowledge and qualification experience will be more or less same, but it is because of the recognition and the power that has been given, it makes a huge difference. So it's something like that, you see. That's the meaning of initiation. So first you should receive initiation, which is the factor that ripens the mind. So when you receive the initiation, it's important to visualize at every step whatever the Lama tells you to visualize, as is taught in authentic tantric discourses. At that time, pay attention to the requisite pledges and vows. That is even more important, the things that you need to do. You receive and protect them. Although you can renew your vows even if you suffer a root infraction, such a downfall will greatly hamper the growth of the qualities of the path within you. Therefore, make intense efforts not to spoil your practice with major infractions. But if your practice does somehow become spoiled, implement the ways of setting things right. These are fundamental to meditation on this path. Without them, your practice will be like a dilapidated house whose walls have collapsed. The root mantra of Manjushri says, achievement of mantra by the morally corrupt is not taught by the Buddha. So it's not possible. Thus it is taught that those who do not maintain their vows will not gain any attainments, whether supreme, middling, or low. So there are different kinds of attainments or accomplishments. The highest or supreme attainment is the attainment of Buddhahood. Okay? Then there are middling or low attainments, like actualizing various levels of realizations, feats, and so on. The highest yoga tantras mention that even if they practice, those who do not guard their pledges, who have received inadequate initiation, and who do not understand suchness will achieve nothing. Therefore, even if you claim to be meditating on the tantric path without observing the pledges and vows, you will be wandering far away from it. Regarding the process of meditation on the tantric path, those observing their pledges and vows should first meditate on the generation stage, which involves visualizing the deity's entire mandala. You generate the entire mandala, as taught in the authentic tantric teachings. This is because the specific object to be eliminated on the tantric path is the ordinary conceptual thought. If you change that ordinary conceptual thought into a pure conceptual thought, mantra, as I explained to you earlier, that casually apprehends the mental and physical aggregates, elements, and sense powers. So that's why you can see when the Lama is giving initiation, and then while doing so, he also sometimes, when you have visualized yourself being transformed into a deity, then the Lama makes an offering to the deity, the transformed state of that student. The butter lamp, food, incense, and so forth. That is to symbolize that now all your senses are purified and you are worthy of making such offerings. So this can be eliminated only by meditation on the generation stage, which transforms the appearance of the place, the ordinary place, the ordinary meditator's body, and the ordinary enjoyments into pure body, pure place, pure appearance, and pure enjoyments. Those practitioners who have purified their ordinary apprehension in this way be blessed by Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas and will quickly complete an infinite collection of merits. So in this way you can receive the blessings. Of course, when you are When you are more pure, more transformed, you can receive blessings from higher beings. And also the meaning of the Tibetan word blessing, chinlap, means to transform yourself into a state of magnificence. So that means when you faithfully do all these practices, naturally you will get transformed. So therefore, you are the one who gives a blessing to yourself in the true sense of the term. So it is also wrong to always expect blessing coming from outside. But normally we don't want to do work, so we try to take the shortcut and expect somebody will do the things for you. Okay? So the real blessing, transforming into a state of magnificence, can be done only by you, in the true sense of the term. Such a person, the practitioners who have purified their ordinary apprehension in this way, be blessed by Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, and will quickly complete an infinite collection of merits. Such a person will then be a suitable vessel to practice the completion stage. The completion stage is so called because when you do the completion stage practice, you are using all the physical points, channels, energies that are complete within you right from the birth. Because you are using those facilities, techniques that are complete within you, so therefore that is called completion stage. Therefore, you should meditate on the completion stage as taught in the authentic tantric teachings, discarding the first stage, that is generation stage, and training merely in a few selected aspects of the path which belongs to its later stage, that is completion stage, is not the intention or thought of the tantric teachings and their learned commentators. So therefore, in fact, the generation stage is called first stage. The completion stage is called second stage. So the practices should be done stage by stage. Therefore, try to seize the essence of the two stages that will constitute the complete body of the path of highest yoga tantra. These words are merely intended to indicate the direction, because we cannot explain everything here, by which to enter into tantra. A detailed understanding should be gained from the exposition of the stages of the path of tantra, which encompass great tantric stages of the path. If you practice in this way, you will be training in the complete body of the path, both the sutric path and the tantric path, that includes the entire essences of the sutras and tantras and gives meaning to your having human life. This is how you can make your human life meaningful. And you will be able to contribute to the flourishing of precious teaching of the Buddha within yourself and within others. So you need to practice, study personally, and you need to share it with others also. That way you can contribute towards the flourishment of the teaching of the Buddha, and the flourishment of the teaching of the Buddha is for the well-being of sentient beings. Thank you. So rejoice. No singing, dancing, but rejoice. So as I said, it is important to pick up some important texts, read repeatedly, and cherish some of these texts and keep it with you as a reminder. So that will definitely make us more peaceful, happier. Life will be much, much more smoother. And that way we can get personal happiness and also contribute to the well-being and happiness of everybody. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama always says, if you are able to help at least 20-30 people in your life, you are making your life meaningful. So let us rejoice and dedicate all the good things that we have earned by this study during the last few days for the flourishment of Buddha's teaching, for the well-being of happiness of all sentient beings, and for the long life of great teachers like His Holiness Dalai Lama, and for the long life of all the good people living on this earth. Thank you. degree.